Well, Lynn, I am so excited to have you on the Collide Kids podcast.
Oh, Christen, thank you for having me on your show.
Yes, we're going to have a great time. I'm really excited to talk with you. Would you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My name is Lynne Ruttkay, and I am an action sports artist. I've been in the action sports industry and working independently with brands like Billabong and Quicksilver for the past 30 years. I've been a single mom and love the Lord and raised my son in Christ in that world of action sports. We live here in San Diego County. And I have been working recently on, it's an audio fiction podcast called Shred Games, The Legend of Kid Z. And a lot of people don't know what is an audio fiction podcast. And I've kind of come up with this, makes it simple. It's like a movie for your ears. It's like 12 episodes and 20 minutes. And it's kind of like a movie, but for your ears.
I love that description. I think that's so fun. Okay, I'm excited to talk to you about all this because I'm interested to learn more about all the artistic things that you've done as well. But before we get into that, because this is a show for kids, I always ask my guests to tell me a joke or a funny story or something. So what do you have for us today?
My son, when he went away to college, I was still working in the action sports industry. And so a lot of times I'd have to do R&D, research and development. And you go into the local shops and you see what's kind of trending with the youth so that you can design artwork for surf and skate and snowboard companies that, that age is going to like and it's cool and stuff. So I went down to Pacific Beach in San Diego, and I went into the skate shop down there, and there's only 3 guys working. There's nobody in the store except the 3 workers and me. And so they're like following me, like there's nothing else to do, so they're watching what I'm going to do. And every once in a while they'd say something and I'd say something back, and they're talking to me and they're just cracking up. Everything, it ended up being they're all surrounding me, they're cracking up. And, keep in mind, my son is their age, and my son is in college, and here these young guys are like thinking I'm really funny to them. And so, one of them just flat out said, "You are so funny." And I looked at him and I said, that makes me feel so much better because my son is your age, and he tells me, "Mom, the only time you're funny is if it's an accident." I'm like, oh my gosh. That made him laugh even more. But the thing that I would say, like for the moms out there is, your teenager might not think that you're cool or funny, but other teenagers do.
Yes.
So that's a true life story.
I like it. And I think it's so true. Like, we're so good at embarrassing our kids so they don't have high hopes for us being actually like funny and engaging and impressive. But we used to be, okay? We used to be. Well, let's get started and talking about your story because I'm very interested to learn about how you got started as an action sports artist. I think that's a really interesting title. Tell me about how you got started in that and why that was your passion for so long.
So, being from San Diego, in the era that I grew up, everybody was surf, skate, snow. It was all that world that you're surrounded with. Mm-hmm. And when I became a single mom, it was after I was divorced that I came to Christ. And, I was born again. But then I needed a job. And so the Lord provided me with this amazing job working for a man named Larry Gordon. And Larry Gordon started the first surfboard company, which is Gordon and Smith Surfboards, and then it went on to GNS Skateboards. And you can see this all about him with the skateboards. It's in the movie The Lords of Dogtown. So
okay.
Larry, his whole company, he is a godly man. And his whole company was filled with all these believers, and the pastor's wives worked. So I came to this company And I was surrounded by people who were helping me learn about the Lord. And at the same time, I was in that whole world, and designing artwork and meeting all the athletes and that type of thing. So that's how I got started in it. And, I've stayed in it all this time because it was fun for my son. He
Yeah.
learned to surf when he was 6, and, he'd bring the GNS stickers home, and oh my goodness, I'd come home and, you had an incident today with your popcorn exploding in the back of your car.
Yes, I
Well,
did.
my son would go into my trunk, take all the GNS stickers and all the Diet Cokes that I had in the trunk, and he'd pass them out to the neighborhood. So, he was pretty popular when he was 6 years old.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think that's interesting that there were so many people at this business that were helping you and discipling you to love the Lord. And it wasn't a Christian company. It was just you were surrounded by believers. That's amazing.
Larry was a very good role model. The company was, he had this attitude of everyone got the benefit of the doubt. Unless you did something, criminal, like stole from the company, you got the benefit of the doubt all the time.
Yeah.
So he was really fair, and he was funny too. But he loved the Lord, and a lot of the pastors' wives worked there. So I got to, know them and went to, became a part of that whole community. It was everyone ended up going to the same church. Well, not everyone, but a lot of us did. So that was kind of nice too.
So as an action sports artist, were you like taking pictures and putting like posters together, or were you like making graphic designs? What did that entail being an action sports artist?
The majority of it has been t-shirts, doing t-shirt designs and fabric prints, and then some logo designing, and sometimes we would do marketing, like ads and brochures and that type of thing. But that's mainly what it was. The main thing was the apparel. It was always artwork for apparel or promoting apparel.
Were you always good at like graphic stuff like that, or is this something you kind of discovered you could do?
I think it was always there, yeah.
Yeah. And I love the story you told earlier about how you would go into stores just to kind of see what the kids were liking and like see what was cool. Is that where did you find most of your inspiration?
That's such a good question, because for me now, I've been doing it for so long that it's like second nature almost. But when you're first starting out, knowing the community that was involved had a lot to do with it. And also my son, because my son, for a while there, he was kind of ahead of a lot of the trends that would happen in the industry. So I had a great benefit from that, because I was kind of knowing what was cool before the industry would shift toward it, which that was pretty neat. But knowing the athletes, and a lot of the athletes that were surfers and skaters, with Gordon and Smith, they ended up starting their own companies, and there's tons of them. They're everywhere. I mean, like DC Shoes. I mean, Rob Deerdeck. I met him when he was 14. He was a skateboarder for GNS. And,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Chris Miller with Planet Earth, Rusty. Rusty used to work for Larry. So there's a lot of them.
That's really
all
cool.
from San Diego. They all started down here.
Yeah. That whole culture is okay. And so now you've taken your passion for these action sports and you've created, like you were telling me earlier about the Shred Games action podcast. Like, can you tell me a little bit about what this is? You said it's like a movie for your ears. I want to hear more about how you got started in this.
The podcast is 12 20-minute episodes. So it's not like your podcast where you're live or talking to people. It's like a movie for your ears. So it's always the same, but it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy story. So it's fantasy action sports is really what it is. And, if you like movies, oh my goodness, the fantasy movies that are like those beloved fantasy movies like Willy Wonka or Chronicles of Narnia or any of those kind of movies that You will really love this because it's got those endearing elements. It has a profound message about the love of God through Christ. There's quite a depth to the story, but it's also full of ridiculousness and silliness and funny stuff. So it's fun. It's really entertaining, but it does have that sense of awe in the love of God.
And so it's about like people that are into these action sports, like skateboarding and stuff like that?
Okay, so the story takes place in a world. The world is called Shredopolis, and it's 3 small islands that are in like the middle of this beautiful ocean. So the place is just beautiful. But in Shredopolis, it's full of whimsical architecture that's all related to the shred games. So the shred games would be, in a sense, like how you would think of the Olympics. Like everyone comes from everywhere to do these shred games, and this Shredopolis is where they come to do them. But they're all fantasy sports. So you have like one example is in the intro, you kind of hear that, you know, there's a skateboarder who's, you know, he's like a spaceman, and he's skating from outer space, and he drops into this huge ramp, and then he shoots back up again. Well, that's like a parody of Danny Way. Danny Way is famous for dropping out from the sky onto kind of extraordinary places like the Great Wall of China, and dropping out of a helicopter onto skateboard ramps. So you kind of see that spirit of a lot of these athletes is very creative, and you know, they're always trying to think of the next trick. So Shred Games kind of takes that heart of that of, here's the next trick, but this is something you'll never be able to do in real life. And we had the owner of Alien Workshop, Mike Hill, he actually did the choreography for the action. So it's all very authentic when you hear what the characters are doing. The main character, his name is Zoomer. He ends up with the alias of Kid Z, but Zoomer is born into this world, and the only reason, like, he's literally bred to be a super athlete, you know? That's why but then when he's born, he's born with no feet. So how is he going to fit into this world where the whole point of your value is based on how you perform in this action sports community? So it really, the story has, I would say the theme is character versus image, you know, and the controlling idea is even deeper in that the controlling idea is what gives you your worth. Because that's what all of us, every single person alive, that's the thing you're searching for. What is it that gives you value? What is it that gives me value? So you see this kid, he's bred for this, and he's born with no feet. So what is his value? He has to find that. So he has this extraordinary challenge to overcome.
Like, what age group would really enjoy this type of story?
Young adult. It's YA. So, but young adult in publishing is like 13 up, like, so 13 through college age. But, you know, it's kind of like how those fantasy films that I mentioned, like Princess Bride. Princess Bride is a really good example. It's like he's telling that story to that young boy, but we all love the story.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good description of it. Now, I'm interested to know, why did you decide to make this a podcast instead of a book?
Okay, so I've gone through, this has been in progress for many years, and I started with a book that I ended up working towards probably in 2013. We did a Kickstarter because we wanted to work on an independent animated film. The thing that was the challenge was this whole thing. I believe the Lord called me to do this project. I mean, at the best of my ability, I'm trusting that I'm being faithful to what he's called me to do. And if I handed it over to someone, they would take out the parts that share the depth of faith in Christ. And, I talked with a lot of people in the film industry who, that are really professional people who, they waited for years and they saw a lot of films where they took out the element of Christ. Like for example, Saving Private Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
the lead character in real life is a pastor, but none of us ever knew that, so they leave out. And I didn't want this story that to happen. And so you're up against a huge challenge because it's a very small niche that wants to do fantasy films. Those are expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a very small niche that I don't know if there is a niche that wants to do fantasy film with a message that glorifies Christ in it. So to have the podcast and to build an audience means if we build the audience, then the value is in the story, and no one's going to take that out. If there's someone who wants to do a film or something, they're not going to take that out. I heard one man say, if you write a screenplay and you're writing yourself in the screenplay, make yourself 10 years older than you are right now, because it's going to take you 10 years for that screenplay to become a film. So it takes years, and when you see films coming out, they've been working on them for years. So for years, they've been working on stuff that no one is going to want anymore. So I see God's hand in that, and it encourages my heart. I just know I'm being faithful, and that's the most I can do. But I do see some things that kind of tell me that, yeah, this is the right track to be on.
I love that. And I love that you have that passion for keeping it authentic and to what you wanted to glorify, which is to glorify God and glorify the name of Christ. So I think that's so important. Where can our listeners find more about Shred Games, The Legend of Kid Z?
So you can go to our website, which is shredgames.com, and everything's there. And we're on all the podcast apps, but the links to the podcast apps are at shredgames.com.
Okay.
But you can also listen right there if you want to also. So, and we're doing a lot of little, fun things with the social media now, with doing little animations to promote. So those are kind of fun to check out too.
Yeah. And so we will put all those links in our show notes so that people can find the website and the podcast and all your social media. So thank you so much for sharing today and for being willing to tell us about this. And I'm so excited for our listeners to check out this podcast. I think if you've got kids that love surfing and skateboarding or just interested in a fun sports story, I think you're really going to enjoy this show. So thank you so much for being here. Before I let you go, I always ask my guests to tell me a memory from when they were a kid. So what memory do you want to share with us today?
Like when I was a little kid, we had 4 kids in our family, and I was the second. So my younger brother and sister, I was always making stuff up for them. I was always making shows. I was always making them carnivals in the neighborhood and Disneyland kind of rides and toy machines for their birthday, that would spit out toys and stuff. So I kind of had that in me, that thing where it's just fun to make things magical, for another person to be having that uplift of joy,
Yeah, it's so interesting how many guests come on this show to tell me about their job or their passion, and they talk about how they were interested in this. A lot of them were interested in the same thing when they were a kid. So I'm not surprised at all that you were interested in making shows and toy and action things, and now that's what you do. So I love that.
It's fun. I think the fun part is that, when you know that God loves you, you know that you have the power to love other people. And no matter what things are like, you always have that to give to another person, and sort of giving another person a leg up and whatever it is that brings them joy, that's fun. That's fun to do.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you, Lynn, so much for being on the show today. This was great hearing your story, and I hope all our listeners will check out your show as well.